Have you ever wondered about the people, places, and history of Trussville, Alabama? What was here during the Civil War? How did the Great Depression play a role in developing Trussville as a town? What was here and now isn't? What could have been here but was derailed? What is still here now that you don't know about just yet? Trussville has a rich history, and it's past time to not only tell you, but show you. Welcome to Traversing Trussville.
Proud. I'm excited and somewhat surprised to see such a big turnout for a program on Camp Coleman. I'm Laura Elliott, Chief Mission Delivery Officer for Girl Scouts of North Central Alabama. And we want to thank Gary Lloyd and the Trussville Historical Board for the opportunity to be here today at Heritage Hall to share the history of Camp Coleman with you. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Karen Peterlin, from the Girl Scouts of North Central Alabama. And Karen has been responsible for quite a number of the more recent improvements at Camp Coleman. What year did you come on board as CEO? 2014, she came on board as CEO, and boy, you'll see in the slides some of the fantastic improvements, but the best one, or most impactful one, I think, was the board made the decision to divest the Girl Scout Council of our office on Heatherbrook Park Drive. I forget that part. I erased it from my memory already. Heatherbrook Park Drive, and we purchased a house on North Lake Drive that belonged to Wayne Mandeville. And some of you may know Wayne and his wife, Barbara. They lived there for quite some time, and it's that brick house right at the back gate, where y'all used to ride motorcycles and tractors and things. Jake is a friend of my son's, and so he spent quite a bit of time at Camp Coleman when he was a kid. So the brick house, we bought the brick house, and Karen had it renovated. It's a fantastic
it's good space. It's
a good space. It's right there at camp, which is fantastic. We don't have to, go. Most best part to me is we don't have to drive on 280. But we really do like having the office there at camp. It's very convenient during the summer when camp is happening.
Absolutely, it's always convenient.
It is.
So first of all, thank you very much, and thank you on behalf of the Trussville Historical Society for allowing Laura to come and share with you today. What's really important, and you've got a booklet, and in the booklet, I made kind of a welcome in the first page. But what's really important is, the power of places. There's the power of a place, and particularly places where girls grow and acquire skills, and whether they be leadership or life skills, there's that power of the place. And that living history is critically important, and the storytelling of that living history is important. The unfortunate time, a lot of that living history sometimes gets lost with people as time goes on, and then sometimes the living history story changes, sort of like that little circle game that y'all played, and you started out with three potatoes and a banana, and you ended up with 4 pears and an apple, or a pickle, something. So the living histories are sometimes a little bit more difficult. But the importance of what Laura's done in working, and a lot of people helping with the research, is the historical accounts are just as important and as critical to know those critical times in history to have the accurate story. And we talk about our founders, and the founders that started Camp Coleman were very bold, and they were bold in their thought. And so they were very bold to take on a project back in 1925, 1926, to purchase a piece of property. And then that very bold attitude that Gertrude Coleman had, that bold vision, and to take that bold vision and then to put it into a history of gratitude, because that's what we're really all about, is that history of gratitude. And then Laura's going to be able to share that real historical account, because it's really important to have that history. because from that history, and then the history that we can share with our girls to continue on. So Laura's got a lot of experience in doing what she's doing. She likes to read a lot of she likes to read newspapers, but she doesn't have to sit in a room with nasty old
Right. Do that digitally these days.
Yes, you know, the computer has opened up a world of research that we never thought existed, but it does, it's there. And so Laura got a lot of experience. Yeah, her hobby, you know, we call her our historian of sort because, you know, if it can be found, she'll find it. So Laura, have a great time.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here this afternoon. We appreciate you coming out. My own Camp Coleman story starts right here. It spanned 50 years, from camper to seasonal camp staff through several professional assignments to the one that I hold now. My son and I lived at Camp Coleman for 10 years, from 1995 to 2005, and Jake pretty much lived there with us. He was my son's best friend during that time. My mother was a Girl Scout, and her mother was a Girl Scout leader. My sister was a Girl Scout. We all camped at Camp Coleman during those times. My mother and grandmother in the 1940s, me and my sister in the 1960s and 70s. My niece is a Girl Scout, and now my son's daughter is a Girl Scout. My granddaughter is a Girl Scout. So 5 generations of Girl Scouts in our family, and over 85 years at Camp Coleman. It's a history that's near and dear, and I'm excited to share it with you. The reason that you might want to know about Camp Coleman is that at 100 years old, first of all, it's older than the city of Trussville. The city of Trussville was incorporated in 1947, I believe, and Camp Coleman, of course, hosted its first camp session July 4th, 1925, 100 years ago, coming up on Independence Day this year. It will be 100 years. So, and second of all, it's one of the oldest Girl Scout camps in the United States that's still operating on its original site. There's been lots of Girl Scout camps come and go over the years, but not very many that are still operating a Girl Scout program on the original site. So we're proud of that history, and I'm happy to share it with you today. These 3 individuals are primarily responsible for the introduction of Girl Scouts to this area and also Camp Coleman. Juliet Gordon Lowe, George Gordon Crawford, and Gertrude Davidson Coleman, who you may have never heard of before. Juliet Gordon Lowe, of course, founded the Girl Scouts in 1912, aiming to empower girls through outdoor activities, community service, and skill development. After a meeting in England with the founder of the Boy Scouts, Lord Robert Baden-Powell, she decided she was inspired to start a similar organization in the United States for girls. On returning home to Savannah, she organized the very first troop there on March 12, 1912. It was right there in Savannah with 8 girls. Small troop. About average size today. By 1920, the Girl Scouts had nearly 70,000 members and branches in every state, including Alabama. Around the same time that Juliet Gordon Lowe was starting the Girl Scouts in Savannah, the steel industry was exploding in Birmingham, Alabama, and specifically out in the Inslee area. The Tennessee Coal and Iron Company, also known as TCI, was the local Birmingham area affiliate of that huge steel manufacturer, U.S. Steel. In 1907, one of our key players arrived on the scene, George Gordon Crawford, a rising star in the steel industry. Crawford faced some serious challenges. Employee turnover of 400% meant a shortage of labor and a lack of experienced workers. He speculated that improving the lives of workers and their families might encourage them to stay longer or to stay, period. He hired Lloyd Nolan, who you may have heard of, to provide medical care for the families. He remodeled some substandard company housing to include the latest amenities, you know, like bathrooms and refrigerators, things like that. He also built new homes and planned communities with nice houses and landscaping. Crawford also aimed to improve social conditions and physical fitness for the families, workers and their families. The villages included schools, churches, playgrounds, gardens, and recreation facilities. Girl Scouts fit neatly into Crawford's plan of improving the social lives of his workers' families. He hired Miss Winifred Collins to serve as the head of the Social Services Department at TCI. She was instrumental in connecting families with activities for their children, including Girl Scouts. Crawford's bold vision eventually reduced absenteeism by half, and the labor turnover rate dropped to below 10%. George Gordon Crawford had rescued TCI and ensured the future of Girl Scouts in Jefferson County. By 1917, the Girl Scout movement had taken root in Alabama. Troops had formed organically across the state. Miss Winifred Collins organized the very first troops herself here in Birmingham and Jefferson County of girls who lived in TCI's company housing. From 1917 to 1921, with aid from the National Office, literature, handbooks, and so forth, additional troops formed mostly by word of mouth. But our friend Crawford wanted more. He wanted an official council structure to cement the Girl Scout organization in Birmingham. This is where that third key player enters the picture, Gertrude Davidson Coleman. Gertrude was born in Springfield, Ohio. She was a brilliant scholar, considered a brilliant scholar, an honor graduate, worked for the YWCA, volunteered with the Red Cross during World War I, and would serve as the first commissioner of Girl Scouts of Jefferson County from 1921 to 1924. Her maternal grandfather was Samuel Sprecher. He was a Lutheran preacher and the president of Wittenberg College from 1849 to 74. The founding president of San Diego College in 1888, and considered one of the foremost thinkers of the Lutheran Church in the United States. Her father was born in Pennsylvania, a graduate of Wittenberg College, head of the Natural Science Department for the San Diego College, and a lifelong educator and administrator. Gertrude's intelligence, aptitude, and abilities were clearly no accident. But she was not immune from challenges. In 1888, her father resigned his position as school administrator in Springfield and moved the family to Pacific Beach. Her mother must have liked it very much. The weather is simply perfect, she wrote. Gertrude probably didn't mind it either. In addition to her father, mother, and older brother, her grandfather, the preacher, and an uncle, C.S. Sprecher, joined them in Pacific Beach. The men of the family were going to start a university, San Diego College of Letters. Samuel Sprecher is pictured on the steps there with the long white beard, and most likely that's Gertrude and her family to the right. Would be the earliest picture we have of them. The college only lasted a couple of years. Controversy erupted when C.S. Sprecher, Mrs. Davidson's brother, not a preacher, married a 16-year-old student who later claimed arrest. The family exited the partnership, and Gertrude's father took a job as principal of the Russ School, which later became San Diego High School, pictured here. By 1900, Frank was superintendent of San Francisco schools and had moved the family, relocated them to Berkeley. Gertrude entered college that fall. Her brother was already a student there, graduating as an engineer in 1902. Things seemed to be going along really well. Gertrude was elected director of the Art Association for the Associated Women Students during her sophomore year. That was pretty unusual to be elected to a leadership position. But next year, we find Gertrude among a group of students, sorority girls, who intend to form a female group to rival Berkeley's Skull and Keys Society. Skull and Keys, which, by the way, I found out is still in existence. And here she is in all her glory. I bet she probably wouldn't have wanted that story or that picture to get out any later, after she was here in Birmingham, or any other time. Turns out it's not really as macabre as it sounds. The group selected the name Mask and Dagger Society and put on a few plays. So there was really not much to it, but it sounds good. Makes for a good story. In her senior year, Gertrude seems to have focused more on academics. She was elected to the Prytanean Honor Society for Senior Women and served as a delegate to the Pacific Coast Students Young Women's Christian Association YWCA convention here in Santa Cruz. In 1905, she graduated with a bachelor's degree, honors and bachelor's degree in Latin and Greek. She racked up an impressive list of accomplishments for a 24-year-old woman, Kappa Delta, honors graduate, and of course, founding member of the Mask and Dagger Society. She was soon selected to serve as Territorial Secretary of the YWCA, a position that required her to travel and do some public speaking. We don't have many quotes from Gertrude, but this one is my favorite. Above all, out of self to service. Others must have liked it too, since she gave that speech many times around that same period. In August of 1909, Gertrude was rewarded in recognition of her brilliant executive ability. She was appointed head of the English-American YWCA in Paris. She has already departed with her mother to assume her new duties, the newspaper reported. The next year, all of Paris is talking of the beautiful young preacher, Miss Gertrude Davidson. Her pulpit is the American Students Hotel in Boulevard St. Michael, and her congregation is made up of students from all parts of the world. Gertrude's family experienced more than their fair share of tragedy. In 1910, her older brother Charles died under mysterious, if not suspicious, circumstances, way out in the desert. He was 30 years old, had just married 7 months before, and his wife was 5 months pregnant. Reported as suffocation resulting from oppressive heat, he was buried immediately by his companions. His body was not retrieved until several days later, and the coroner was unable to complete a thorough investigation of the cause of death. Gertrude and her mother were still in Paris, leaving Gertrude's father Frank and Charles's young widow Mary, 5 months pregnant, to bury Charles. In fact, Gertrude would still be in Europe when World War I broke out. She immediately volunteered for hospital service in Italy in a unit organized by the wife of Thomas Nelson Page. He was the U.S. ambassador to Italy at the time. After a year of hospital service, she transferred to YMCA canteen and leave area service. That's what it was called. And at first I thought this canteen service must have been, off fun and games, not very demanding. Until I learned that wounded soldiers were transported by rail in these leave areas. As they were being transported back to the hospitals, these leave areas were important layovers for bandage changes and such. Oops. There you go, bandage changes. Sorry, y'all tell me if I get ahead of myself. Bandage changes. So during the same time, though, there was a young lieutenant, Jasper, Alabama lieutenant, named John Shields Coleman. He was serving in the 64th Infantry. His widowed mother, Nanny Coleman, was back in Jasper awaiting his return. Luckily for her, his term was short, ending with orders to return to the U.S. July 18, 1919. Did he stop at one of Gertrude's canteens on his way back? We don't know for sure, but we do know that his and Gertrude's return to the States intersected at some point. It was while he was taking his leave for the States that he met his bride, and their romance began en route, here aboard the SS Victoria. 2 years later, when they married, John Shields Coleman was an up-and-coming young Birmingham lawyer. The wedding took place here at the home of his aunt and uncle in Chattanooga. The couple spent a 10-day honeymoon at the Signal Mountain Inn. Isn't that pretty? I think I would like to go there. Where his grandparents hosted a lavish reception on the lawn of their Jasper home, which still stands. Several hundred guests attended. The galleries, meaning the porches, galleries of the Shields home, and the trees surrounding it were gay with patriotic transparencies, the newspaper reported. Refreshments and decorations were green and white. Apparently, Gertrude already had an affinity for Girl Scout green. The couple first set up housekeeping in this mountain terrace home, still standing by the way, over on Altamont area, but soon moved to an apartment in the prestigious Rhodes Court complex, which also still stands there behind St. Vincent's Hospital. You may have driven by and seen it. It's right across the street from Rhodes Park. In Birmingham, Gertrude quickly found her calling. She turned her talents to the burgeoning Girl Scout movement. She also joined the Birmingham College Women's Club, where her knowledge of arts captivated the women members. Her growing influence led to her election as the first commissioner of the Birmingham Girl Scout Council, a role she embraced with passion, training the Girl Scout captains. She still found time to lecture on art for the Birmingham chapter of the Alabama Art League, which she was a member. In 1923, there was no local Girl Scout camp, so girls went to Camp Winnetoska. But Gertrude and other council Girl Scout leaders dreamed of a property just for Girl Scouts. It was not until 1925 that we had the courage to purchase a camp, Miss Murdoch said. I'm sure our CEO can relate to that, the courage that it takes to make those types of decisions. Unfortunately, Gertrude Davidson Coleman would not live to see her dream fulfilled. Her life ended tragically November 22nd, 1924, at age 37. After undergoing a cesarean section on November 15th for the birth of her first and only child, November 15th, 1924, at South Highlands Hospital. She succumbed to postpartum eclampsia a week later. Her newborn son, Davidson Coleman, survived her only a month, passing away on December 22nd, 1924. Honoring his late wife's passion, John Shields Coleman established a Girl Scout Gertrude Coleman Memorial Cup. It was a competition, a field meet trophy with categories such as signaling, fire building, and first aid. Unfortunately, no one knows where the trophy is today, but it most likely looks something like this. Gertrude's vision of a camp for Girl Scouts endured beyond her lifetime. On March 12th, just months after her passing, the board of directors of the Birmingham Girl Scout Council met. They voted to take the necessary steps towards the purchase of the 160 acres near Trussville owned by Mr. Dow for a Girl Scout campsite. The purchase price was $4,400 or $27.50 an acre. A wise investment in the future of the region's Girl Scouts. In recognition of Gertrude's foundational role, the council named the new camp Camp Gertrude Coleman and welcomed its first campers July 4, 1925. The property was likely chosen for its beauty and geographic features, nestled along the banks of the winding Cahaba River with an abundance of wildlife, scenic views, and overlooks. That first summer, there were 24 campers and 8 counselors or adults, 32 people, and only 2 buildings. Peter Pan Unit, now Sherwood, and the Director's Cabin. Both buildings still stand on the property today. That summer, 1925, campers felled a pine tree to make a makeshift flagpole. The current flagpole is in the same location. The rock formation known then as Fairyland is now called Fairy Rock. Back then, a bugler announced all the times for activities, and I listed them all here. You don't have to read them all, but it's interesting to see that list all in order. Being the bugler, that must have been a full-time job. In August of 1926, Birmingham news photographer and reporter Walter Rosser documented camp life. By then, a dining hall had been added named Lowe Hall for Juliet Lowe. He also recorded some photographs, some of the earliest that we have, and assigned captions to them, which I think are fascinating. In woodworking, the girls make many useful and ornamental things such as birdhouses, camp furniture, and the like, and they make them well, he said. Some photos didn't make the paper, but we're still very lucky to have a record of some of these earlier photographs. Another phase of nature study at the Girl Scout camp, Rosser said. Here the girls are engaged in making blueprints of leaves. Don't say girls can't drive nails or use a saw. I think I've heard Karen say that before. This is fine business. I love this one. This is fine business, Rosser said. The swimming pool at the Girl Scout camp is one of striking beauty and a rare charm. And of course, the swimming pool wasn't an actual pool. It was a swimming hole. But he called it a pool in this caption. A couple of other images from the article that didn't make the newspaper, or that we don't have the originals of, let's put it that way. All is not play at the Girl Scout camp. The campers spend much of their time doing educational work, and of course that's still the case today. By 1927, the map begins to fill in a bit. Low Hall, the dining hall, added in 1926, and the Adirondacks cabin unit in 1927. Birmingham Civitans donated a new metal flagpole to replace the makeshift pine pole. That replacement, the metal pole, lasted until 1996 when an all-aluminum one was erected in memory of the 80s camp director, Earl Blackburn. Back in 1927, most campers arrived on the train. Some deboarded at the Trussville train station. Image courtesy of Gary Lloyd, I believe.
Someone
else's image.
Museum.
The museum's image, right. The lucky ones were transported the rest of the way to Camp Coleman in the back of a truck with benches and sideboards. Others report that the train stopped out at Highway 11 near the Publix, and they hiked of course, the Publix wasn't there yet. The train stopped out there by Highway 11 at the Publix, and they got off, and after they went into Publix to get there, they hiked into Camp Coleman, carrying all of their belongings like this. Can you imagine if you walked into Publix dressed like this today? Okay, so just to get everybody straight, no Publix was there, but they stopped there on the train tracks, deboarded, dressed like this, slung their belongings across their shoulder, and hiked the rest of the way in. Crazy. There were still no formal showers, so the girls made do with shampooing in the creek and spit baths in lashed hand washing stations, like this one. Originally built in 1934 as a guest cabin, office, and camp store, this building was fully restored in 2021 and is now called Outlook Inn. Mary's Inn, a cabin unit, was built in 1931. One original cabin remains. Treasure Lodge, a two-story building with loft sleeping, was added in 1934. Unfortunately, it had to be removed in the 1960s due to structural concerns. Labeled as a hospital on old maps and also on the sign over the doors, this building was originally the nurses' station or infirmary. I'm not sure why they called it a hospital. It makes it sound like ambulances are driving up out there. It was later used as a craft hut and replaced in 2019. Numerous attempts were made to build a bridge across the harbor for reliable access to land on the other side. It would be 3 decades before a permanent solution was found. Outdoor cooking was truly outdoors. It would be 30 years before actual cook shelters were added. By 1935, the layout looked like this. There was a lot happening between 1936 and 1948. Horseback riding was added in 1940. The riding instructor was called the riding mistress. I joke that we should get sashes for our horseback instructors and have them wear them as they teach horseback riding. That's a riding mistress. It was discontinued in the 1960s and returned again in 1986. A senior tent unit was added across the river in 1948. The Pioneer unit for older campers, it was later named Pettiff Glen. A unit across the river required a reliable river crossing, so that ugly problem reared its head again. There still was not a solution for that problem. Paddling a canoe across wasn't always an option. Another footbridge washed away in 1945, and a raft replaced it in 1948. The raft was later named Marsha the Barge. Girls towed themselves across on the raft using ropes and cables strung across the Cahaba. Girls liked the cabins at Adirondacks and married men, but in 1948, the treetop unit of platform tents was added. It was destroyed by a winter storm in 1993 and was not rebuilt. Horses still remained popular and girls still swam in the Cahaba River. So in 1948, the layout looked like this. Starting to fill in quite a bit, huh? In 1949, Mr. Harry Rust, he's associated with Rust Engineering. Harry Rust, his daughter was going to camp that summer. He and his friends decided that a proper swimming pool was needed. The original structure was actually two pools, one shallow and one deep, constructed of chimney block. Later, the dividing wall was removed, and the two pools became one, as you see here in this image. Another cabin unit was added in 1949, named Virginia, for Mrs. Herbert Stockham, whose name happened to be Virginia. Robin Hood, a huge clear span open-air gym, was built prior to 1952. Probably one of the most architecturally significant buildings on the property. In 1956, that problem of crossing the Cahaba was finally solved permanently, or close to it, with another architecturally significant feature. Engineer Mr. Daniel Andrew Helmich designed and oversaw construction of the bridge. Modeled after the center section of the Golden Gate and built with materials donated by Virginia Bridge and Line. In 1958, the Jefferson County Girl Scout Council became part of a new organization, the Cahaba Girl Scout Council. Camp Coleman welcomed Girl Scouts from a larger geographic area to raise the flag, write letters home, and ride horses. By 1958, the site has become more densely developed with the addition of the Robin Hood open-air gymnasium. It takes up quite a big swath of ground there. The swinging bridge you see is been added there. Between 1959 and 71, cookie money resulted in a lot of new structures. Ed Earl Blackburn, the council's camp director and administrator, oversaw many improvements, including an all-season enclosed cabin called Pine Tree in 1968, a new swimming pool in 1971 to replace the old chimney block pool that was built in 1949, and the construction of a new low hall. The old screen building was replaced with a modern, fully equipped building in 1971. Can you imagine still eating in the old one? Virginia Adirondacks and married men got proper cook shelters in 1962. A new bathhouse was built in 1966, and Friends of Girl Scouting constructed Memory Shelter in 1968. So that by 1971, the layout looked like this. In more recent history, a new office called Central was built in the 1980s. Horses returned in 1986. A new barn was built in 1990 and since expanded. The treetop unit was destroyed by a winter storm in 1993. Dogwood, a cabin unit built in this place in 1994, actually over 2 years, 94 to 96, from lumber that was milled on the property during the timber harvest. The old cook cabin was relocated and renovated in 1995 to become the trading post. Somebody whispered it up front, the trading post. And in 2007, 4 Girl Scout councils merged to become Girl Scouts of North Central Alabama. Camp Coleman celebrated its 85th birthday in 2010. with a commemorative sketch by Miss Ruth Yarborough, an artist and Girl Scout member, commemorated that 85th birthday. And another member, Girl Scout member, drew them out depicting the layout in 2010. Camp Coleman was listed on the Alabama Register of Landmarks and Heritage in 2012. And most recently, the 66-year-old consistent problem crossing of the Cahaba River swinging bridge was completely restored in 2022. In fact, better than restored, I think. It's really fabulous. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it. The old entrance bridge had to be closed in 2007 and remained closed for quite some time until 2022 when a brand new one opened after a 16-year absence. It's a long time. And in 2024, Girl Scouts of North Central Alabama moved its council office, a Birmingham council office, onto the property, making the current layout look like this. Girl Scouts still come to Camp Coleman to experience the outdoors, even though a lot of changes have occurred over the 100-year history. From sparse beginnings with 2 buildings for 32 people in July of 1925, the evolution from campfire cooking to dining hall, wash-away footbridges, struggles with Marsh the Barge, to the iconic swinging bridge, from latrines to flushies, a chimney block cooking pit, what I meant to say, to a actual indoor kitchen, a swimming hole to 2 chimney block pools, to a real swimming pool in 1971, and even from screen huts to air conditioning. What would Gertrude think of her camp today?
It would be amazing.
Did she know that girls would still come 100 years later in 2025, cross the swinging bridge, paddle canoes in the Cahaba, ride horses, gather around the campfire, sing the Camp Coleman song, make s'mores, and new friends? It seems that nature has specially designed the spot for such a camp, weaving such a subtle charm about it, creating an ideal environment. It seems not much has really changed since 1925. This is